ever met. And with the name Thurmond growing up, to be honest with you, I know what prejudice is, even though I was raised by a black woman in my house because my mom had to work. So we always had Alice, and her son wanted her to go to Chicago. It was during the time when I was getting to be 10 to 12. So he didn't want his mother working with us, even though he grew up right there where I did in West Monroe, Louisiana. And she wouldn't go. And she had to drink out of a different, well, I'll never forget when I was in A&P in Monroe, and I was little then, about, I don't know, 6 or 7, but I got mad at the manager because he wouldn't let her drink out of the water fountain. The black one was broke. So, we got a drink. It was real hot in the summer, and she went with us to the store because Mama had like 4 of us then, 3 or 4, maybe a baby, but I always remember how black people were treated and how I was treated because my name was not only did I have white skin or brown, I was always tan, but they called me white Anglo-Saxon Protestant when I was born. So I guess, if I was among a bunch of black people and they met a white person, I'd be the one killed, even though I have a lot of trust that we're not going to be fighting about skin color. And most of the people in my family, even though we're mixed and blended, we don't talk about really religion. We say Jesus pays the bills because that's what my daughter always said. But, I've got about 4 Bibles in the stack over there I'm looking at. I'm not saying I'm not God-fearing, but you can believe in a higher power or not. But I'll tell you one thing about all the people I met. I didn't grow up in bad places like I've heard or seen when I traveled as a truck driver. But I know it doesn't matter. And one thing that Alice taught me, God rest her soul, her name was Alice Taylor of West Monroe, Louisiana, if anybody listens to me, and I know they do in Louisiana. And Don Lemons is from Louisiana. I'm an independent, and he's an independent as far as votes go. Now, these people that don't know us, 3 women, you can think what you want, but there's a time when I wished I would have been any color but white and had any name but Thurmond. But everybody has their own crosses to bear, is the way we always said it. And I put on here tonight, I've begun my spiritual journey with certain friends in 2020. So I hope that my friends can be above color, race, creed, even politics, because I don't like to discuss politics and religion. And I may be dumb in some ways, but believe it or not, I was always thought of rather intelligent. And so you can't judge people by the sound of their voice. I don't care what anybody says. You make them pick up like we do in the psychic field. I have the psychic network. You can pick up vibrations, but you don't judge a book by its cover, and you don't judge a person by their skin, okay? And you sure don't judge them by the way they sound. You don't know you don't know where they've been. You don't know. You haven't walked in their shoes. You haven't lived their life. So, I grew up not real wealthy. We were, I guess, like we weren't like the Beaver Cleavers. Or back in the day was who was it? Ricky Nelson, the Nelsons, and I'm dating myself. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. I don't know how much I've taught, but there's people who are a lot more.
You're out of the time. I've got to get back to for some reason the clock didn't sound. Okay, yeah, you're out of time. Okay, wow. Thank you, Theresa. That was great. That felt very heart-centered, and I think that's one thing that's very important to get out of our heads and connect with our hearts and see who's in our life and who's important. And, do the best we can in our short little time on this earth. So I'm hoping, and I've got to follow this thread, I really am getting some hints that things are changing on a core level that it hasn't changed over all these years. We've been, blending and browning of America and starting to get to know our neighbors. I was thinking about my own situation, and I was in a black and white culture in Pittsburgh. It was mostly black and white. I remember the first time I saw a black lady, I wish my parents would have taught me about different races because I was home alone with Mom and everybody was white. But I went to the G.C. Murphy's 5 and Dime store. I remember I was really tiny. It was under my mother's skirt. I was literally like crawling under there and hiding. I was so shy. And I looked up and I saw these legs that were very, very dark, black. And I peeked out from under my skirt and I looked up and this poor woman from head to toe was very, very black. And I didn't know that people could be in that color. And I started to cry horribly. And my mother was puzzled, like, what is going on? And I got her off so the lady wouldn't hear. I go, Mommy, what's wrong with that lady? How is she hurt? Is she in pain? Is she burned? Is she burned? And my mother, no, she didn't make fun of me. She could have made fun of me, but she just said, no, some people are different colors. So I think we really need to start integrating because it was very separate back then. But one of my secret wishes was to be in a culture that wasn't so polarized. After the assassination of Martin Luther King, and I finally went to Penn State University, and there in the middle of State College, I started hanging out with people of different race, colors, creeds, religions, orientations, and I was really ecstatic. And so I always wanted to go to Hawaii. So Hawaii, when I moved here in 1993, I experienced racism for the first time because I guess I was white privilege, right? Although I don't know about all that because we were poor as poor. And I remember that my food had to be rationed. My dad was a mailman. He had a wife and 3 kids. He never got a mortgage. The house was left to him. He couldn't afford much, $200 cars. And so when I got a bag, I liked Oreos. I had to ration them so they would last 2 weeks for the next payday. And I remember my mom had to take the food and just she would put it on the plate, and then there were no seconds. You ate, that was it, no seconds. So I was really undernourished. My husband was living in California and had fresh air, and he grew to be 6 foot tall. And he said, well, part of why you're so short, not besides genetics, is that you were half starved your childhood. You were malnourished. So anyway, so I finally I came to Hawaii, and when I moved into Oahu, oh shoot, I didn't start the timer. Anyway, I'll end this in just a minute here. I was shocked to have the discrimination. Now over in Oahu, it's Polynesian, Asian mix. Sometimes it was reversed. They liked me more because I was blonde-haired and blue-eyed. And sometimes it was the other way. I had a woman I worked with I couldn't understand, and she came over to me and she says she hated me because I was different looking. and I went home and I oh, I'm sorry. I said, I think you're beautiful, and she was very beautiful, Asian. And so when I got home, I got fired. I got let go from the temp agency. So it was really shocking to experience that. And then I met my husband. I moved to Maui. Now, Maui is very diverse. You have every religion here, every color, everything. You have the hippies, you have it's a blue state, there's some conservatives, but you just have the whole thing here. So I've been here 24 years, and I love it. And but what I noticed recently, I did a little experiment. As long as my hair was blonde, people were polite, but when I dyed my hair darker, I wanted to go a little bit darker, then they started to call me Auntie when I went to the store. So I'm older now, I'm 66, and I'd go to the store, and they would go, thank you. But when I started to color my hair, they go, thank you, Auntie. So I found a video last night that says all white people are racist, and I went, oh my God. I think there's a racist part that runs underneath internally in all of us, and we really need to be more sensitive when we're insensitive to other people, and stop, acting out the things that are in our subconscious and just, correct ourselves. I'm sorry, and say it again with love. So I'm going to pass the talking stick to Karen. Thank you for listening.
Sure, it was beautiful. It's nice. You do such a beautiful job. I see a film, like a movie. Well, I came from a small town in Texas, and it had its beautiful times back in the 50s, 60s, and I'm telling my age too, but I think they were very precious times and very beautiful. I lived in a small town called Glen Rose, and it had a river that ran through the town, and it was just beautiful. And the times were great. And then there were no black people there. And there were probably a lot of racists, and I never thought anything one way or the other. And we saw in Austin, we went to visit some relatives, and one of my relatives, my father's first cousin, had a black lady that lived with them in their house, and she was just as sweet as she could be. And her name was Viola, and she's passed now, and I know she's hearing me right now. But I asked my mother, I said, Viola's different. She said, yeah. I said, she's so sweet. She said, she's a different color, but she's equal. We're all the same. And I had a wonderful mother. And I said, okay, well, that's great. Let's love Viola. She said, we all love Viola. She's equal. You must always remember this is just a color. And then from there, of course, whenever I was in my 26 is when I went to Brazil on that project for 8 years. And I lived in Rio. And in Rio, that part of Brazil has a lot of culture from Africa. And so everybody is black and white, and there's no racism there, really. And it's just some of the best Brazilian music there is from the black people. And I hate to use a color because I think we're all the same. I feel it. I've never felt a racist feeling at all. In fact, I'm totally against it. And but that's what and then whenever I moved to Europe and was there, I didn't notice it in Italy either. It wasn't. I never saw it around. I'm sure it was. I didn't see it in France. But it seems to be more in our country, and we're so blessed because we have such a beautiful country. I mean, I think it's great what TJ said about honoring our country, and I totally believe it in every way. I think we're very, very grateful, should be very grateful to be an American. And so that's, in relation to the racism and the chaos that we're all experiencing, that's all I have to say really about it. I think that this is a time that we can all come to realize, and I agree with you, Janet. I think that this is a time where people are coming together more. They're being more sensitive about the races. They're seeing more everybody the same. I think there's an advancement in what's going on here. I think it's positive. I think it could be good. I think people have to get out of their head and get into their heart and their feelings, and most people don't like to do that because they don't like to deal with it. But in order to see all the other places and go to those special places and get the good synchronicities, we have to go through those intense feelings to cleanse all that out. And I think we're kind of doing it as a country. I believe that. And this is the dark part of the family of origin, we should say, maybe call it or whatever. But I think things are going to get better. I really believe that. I don't know what else to say in relation to this subject. I think that people think about this moment to moment. I don't think it's just
you can talk about whatever you want to. You don't have to do this subject. You can talk about whatever you want to. Yeah. Well,
I think that this is on all of our minds all the time because most of us watch the television all the time, the news, just to see what's happening or that sort of thing. I do. I watch it a lot. And In fact, I wondered why Ancient Aliens hadn't been coming on anymore. So maybe they'll come back.